My name is John Hay. I am with Ponticus Development. Ponticus Development is a real estate development firm based here in Houston. And we have owned property at the subject property we're going to be speaking about since about October of 2017. We bought phase one. Nick, you want to put the slide up as it relates to just the location? Okay, go back a slide, a couple slides. Okay, as you look at on the screen, you'll see the site location slide. The site is essentially located at the intersection, at the southeast intersection of I-10 and Thompson Road. Currently, we have two buildings on the site, which is phase one that I mentioned earlier. In October of 2018, we purchased phase two. Phase two is what we'll be discussing this evening. Nick, go to the next slide, please. The slide that you see in front of you is a combination of phase one and phase two. Let's see, how do we draw? Just slide on there we go. This building that I've circled or attempted to circle is currently built, and we have two tenants in that building. We have another building that is built, and we're continuing to speak with tenants in that particular location.
So they are residential buildings,
No, ma'am, these are warehouse industrial buildings.
and you have people living there
No, ma'am, we have people occupying those buildings.
as
Businesses.
employees.
Yeah, businesses with employees, and they're using those buildings for warehouse purposes.
Okay. We can't see your circling, or at least I can't.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. All right, Nick, let's go to the next slide. All right, I'm sorry. Before we get off this slide has been previously approved through the city council, and it's currently zoned light industrial. As you can see, the section which I'm going to Nick point to, the section that Nick is pointing to with the arrow is phase two, that primarily has the elongated industrial warehouse buildings. And it has.
I'm sorry, I'm still not seeing anything.
Jason,
Lynn,
thank you,
are
Jason. Thank you, Jason.
Can you see that? Can you see that?
Can you see that?
No.
So it must only show up on what's.
Look at the channel 16 screens, please.
Well, I don't know how to do that. Sorry, I'm looking at whatever you're presenting. Hold on just a second. Let me see if I can do that. Okay. I can see it. Yeah, it's okay. It's small. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, the area. Oh, okay.
He's gonna put it up in there. Just stop sharing altogether.
He's gonna run it from there.
Up at the top, stop share, red button, way up at the top, way up at the top. There you go.
There we go. Okay, now we're on.
Okay, so that area that you see highlighted is is currently zoned light industrial, and that's our phase two of this particular project.
Bring your PDF up on here and don't share it.
Not working.
Okay.
Okay, there it is.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, we apologize for the technical difficulties.
Okay.
We're in real estate, not technology, as you can tell. Real estate and construction, not IT. So the area highlighted is the phase two portion of our property that is currently zoned light industrial, that has been through the planning and zoning and has been recommended from planning and zoning, 2 different planning and zoning meetings. It was presented and approved to move to city council for this Thursday night's approval, our vote at the city council meeting to go from light industrial to heavy industrial. With that heavy industrial, it comes some restrictions associated with that that our engineers can discuss later. Currently, with this current plan, we have the opportunity not only to build the approval to not only build the existing warehouse buildings that are the buildings that you see elongated on that phase 2 portion, but we also have the ability to build the rail that's shown on that site plan as well. So that's approximately 400 cars plus or minus that is approved currently. And let's go to the next slide. And I'll show you okay, the next slide is what we're going to discuss this evening, and primarily this evening we'll be discussing at the city council meeting on Thursday night. So as you look at the site plan, we have the warehouse a little over, that shows about 800,000 square feet. We have the potential to build 1 million square foot or more on that site where the building is located. But then you see the adjacent rail tracks for storage on phase 2 of this property.
John, let them know that picture has.
Yes, the orientation has changed a little bit. So if you look, you'll see I-10 along as it looks to it's east. If you look, it's to the right of your slide. And then, there you go. And then the Cody Yard, which is the existing Cody Rail Yard along the bottom portion of your site. And then we're going to be discussing tonight the highlight phase 2, please again, Jason. There you go. This is the area that we will be discussing tonight. The area that you see in green is UP property, Union Pacific property, and that's future expansion for the Union Pacific Rail at the time that they decide they would like to expand the Cody Yard. We do not have any timing or guarantee that will happen. So what we'd like to discuss tonight, and we'd really like to just open it up for questions. We have our rail consultants. We have our rail consultants as it relates to design. We have our rail consultants as it relates to the operation of the facility and how that facility will work. We have the engineers for this particular site. They have done sound studies. They have done emission studies, lighting studies, and we were prepared to answer Councilman Member Johnson, your questions as it relates to anything that you'd like to ask, as well as some of the members on the city members on the call today. So I'd like to open that up with your questions. Make this kind of an informal discussion.
Well, I hate to say it, but I don't think any of us have enough knowledge to know what to ask.
Brand, we'll have our rail consultant up here to begin discussing the particular rail yard itself.
I've got a question. I'm on Lynn Foley's FaceTime or Face. There's a whole bunch of buildings in there that apparently are going in that haven't been built yet. Is that correct?
Let's go back to the original plan.
Because you mentioned what's already there,
Yes.
and then you showed the next phase, and all those elongated buildings. They're not there right now, are they?
No, they are not there, but they are approved in the original site plan approval process earlier on.
Are they needed when you consider how much empty space there is out there right now? Those buildings that have been built are totally empty, as I can see it from the street, from the road.
The
You must be
building,
planning a major expansion. You must be planning a major warehousing expansion out there, and these rail cars are going to service that. Is that correct?
as we're able to provide, as we're able to get that customer that would use that building, you are correct.
But I'm talking about buildings that haven't been built yet.
That's correct.
They may be approved, but they haven't been built yet.
That's correct. And once our leasing group is able to get the contract,
So that, but that basically tells me that there's a whole lot of 18-wheelers there to be coming back and forth to a new set of buildings that aren't there yet.
and that is that is the case
And
under the existing plan. If you look at phase 2, let's go to phase 2. The new phase 2.
Well, what I'm leading up
the-
to is that those rail cars are going to provide some service, some connection to those 18-wheelers. Is that not correct?
Yes, they're going to provide service. They're going to provide service to the 18-wheelers, but they're also going to provide service to the plants today, which is Exxon and the plants Lyondale and the plants in the Baytown area.
But I know
with-
I'm getting
but-
I'm getting down the road a little bit. I'm getting down the road a little bit. But your contention that there isn't going to be a lot of additional rail traffic, and that it's going to be more efficient rail traffic, I find that really hard to believe when the new 18-wheelers that are going to have to be servicing those new warehouse buildings and the rail cars that are going to with it, that they're not going to create more traffic. I find that really hard to believe.
Actually, and the plan that we're proposing that you have in front of you will eliminate the 18-wheeler traffic as compared to the original plan that you saw with the existing buildings. It will eliminate the amount of 18-wheeler traffic, and it will not increase and our rail experts will be discussing this in a minute, it will not increase the rail traffic because that traffic is coming to those plants today.
So those new buildings, those elongated buildings that are on there are not going to be built.
No, the one building that you see on this particular site plan is a speculative building
Okay, we
that
we
could,
don't see it.
okay.
Well, I see it from that building's already there. I see it from the road, right? It's
Yeah.
already in place.
There's one building there along I-10 that is there in place.
See that when we drive.
Right, okay.
But essentially, all those elongated buildings that you highlighted a little bit ago as part of the phase 2 or whatever you call it, phase whatever, haven't been built yet. But they're going to be warehousing buildings.
Those only
And-
one. The other warehousing buildings will be replaced with the rail traffic that you see in the slide labeled overall site plan.
So I guess what we're expected to believe it's going to be a zero-sum game kind of thing, right?
Yeah. It's very difficult without us pointing to the very same slides to look at.
You bet.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Brandon Musser. I'm with RITD. I've worked out here on the Baytown sub for about 30 years, the Baytown subdivision. I want to bring up another slide to give you some idea. To take a step back here real quick and show you something a lot of people may not know about their city. It's very unusual to some people, but this is a.
Can you see this?
Can you see the rail map? Do they have a rail map?
I see it.
Oh,
Yes, yeah.
good. Okay. This is actually a rail map and of Baytown. You see Baytown down here in the bottom, right below where you see the big I-10 symbol. You see the word Baytown. That's the Baytown complex, and this is the
Right.
rail traffic that goes through your city every day, highlighted in yellow. And you see the arrows on that track showing the direction of the flow. It all flows counterclockwise, and it just keeps going in a big circle back to Houston, comes back out along Market and the Chip Channel, and then goes back north to Dayton, and then heads back southwest back to the city. That is what's happening today in your city. And so the reason, as John was saying, we've gone from 3 buildings in phase 2 to 1 is the producers, the manufacturers in the city have reached out to us and said, look, there's an opportunity here for, I hate to use a cliche, but a win-win in that we can help control the flow of cars into the city, at the same time produce the product and get the cars out quicker out of the city. And the reason that is today on that circle I'm calling it a circle, but you can see it's kind of a triangle turned on its side. Many cars that come in and out of the plant today travel that route 2 and 3 times to get loaded and get stored before they finally leave your city. And so the producers came to us and said, look, you've got a great asset here. Yes, we don't need more 18-wheelers. We need rail storage. We need a place to park cars so that we can control the flow of those cars into the city, and then one time load them and send them to storage. And where those storage spots are located, as you see over here on the right-hand side of the triangle, you see a lot of blue stars. That's where those cars are
Right.
already going today, and they're being stored there today. Unfortunately, without Port 10, when they're ready to be loaded, they may have to travel back around the triangle and come back through Baytown again before they can finally be loaded. So you have you'll see the same car 2 and 3 times before it departs your city. Port 10, the producers saw it as an opportunity to send cars to Port 10 empty and then release them into Baytown as needed to be loaded and depart, and you see them one time before they finally come back one day ready to do their job again. So it's counterintuitive. You would be right to be to ask questions, but it may be counterintuitive, but this is in fact a way to increase velocity at the road crossings in Baytown and decrease the number of times we see the same car going around the loop before it finally gets out of here. So that's what John was saying earlier when he said we'd see a decrease in rail traffic and a decrease in truck traffic with this new design. And this was brought on just by a lot of the same people you live and work with here in Baytown, the producers who saw an opportunity.
So if I understand you, when I'm going down Cedar Bayou Lynchburg Road and I'm caught behind a long train, I'm looking at a bunch of empty cars.
Yes, sir. Often you are. And sometimes they'll come back around and be loaded the second time, but most of the time you're looking at a lot of empties.
Okay, well, that says something.
Yeah,
And then in the future, with this parking lot for rail cars that you're proposing, with this parking lot for rail cars, they'll stay there when they're empty instead of running around in the circle.
that's correct. And in fact, you put it very well. That's a great visual. It's a parking lot. And that
And
just like you build a lot of aprons to keep trucks from parking on your street around, you build a lot of aprons around your truck stop so you can get them off the highway. That's what this is intended to do.
So then the cars that are empty will stay in the parking lot instead of running the circle and right through the city. And when they're ready to be filled and the product is ready for them at the Exxon plant, the chemicals or whatever. And by the way, I worked for years for Exxon.
There you go.
And when that's all ready, then the car will be moved and it may go across that intersection one time empty to get to the plant to get filled up, and then it'll go off to wherever it's going, San Antonio or Dallas.
You nailed it. You've done your homework. That's exactly what it does. And I could even bore you to death and tell you how many times cars leave here, go to the south ship channel, come back to the north side, go back to the south side. There's even more congestion in here that we could try to, it would get real boring for a lot of people. But this one single parking lot, strategically placed upstream of the entire complex, is designed to allow the producers, the Exxons, like you said, that you work for, to get a breath and not have to shove every car in the gate. You know, when you're full and you're trying to squeeze another train into your plant, it doesn't go very fast. And so the idea here is let's park them and we'll call them when we need them, and you bring them to us so we can load them and get them out of here.
And by only having one new warehouse elongated building out there instead of 3, we're gonna effectively reduce, hopefully, the amount of 18-wheeler traffic that's coming in and out, because we aren't even talking about that.
That's exactly right. You're right. It would reduce it because we would not be building those other 2 buildings and putting more 18-wheelers on the streets.
Okay, well, I spent some time in oil movements at the refinery, so moving rail cars around the refinery was something I did for a living for a while. So I got some sense of where some of these tie-ups are. So
Good.
I can see
Yes,
some
sir.
benefit in what you're saying, but I'm still not totally convinced because I don't like the idea of more 18-wheelers either. So.
No.
You got it. Well, the biggest thing is, as John was saying, those 3 buildings were approved. We looked very hard. Ponticus looked very hard at moving forward with those. And it was actually the producers who drove this conversation to say, look, we got a chance here to make life better for a lot of people, including the producers. Let's make no bones about it. We wouldn't hide that fact. But it also makes life better for the constituents. It makes life better for the rail traffic, and hopefully we increase velocity and get these cars out of here faster.
And Councilmember Johnson, did you have something? You
Well,
wanted to add?
I think the one concept we can all grasp onto is that when we sit there waiting for those trains to cross that intersection at Cedar Bayou Lynchburg, the fact that maybe 2/3 of the cars are empty, and maybe in the future, less than 1/3 of the cars will be empty, that's a plus.
Yes, sir. That'd be ideal. That would make this great.
One of the other problems, Dan, that I find is that I'm parked waiting on a train that isn't moving.
Yes, and that again goes to
Right.
the fact that the complex is full. And as you know, and so a lot of times those trains are in rolling storage, they don't have a place to park, and they're moving around very slow, and they do block road crossings, and
When you
actually-
realize that a lot of those cars that aren't moving are empty cars, you begin to understand a little bit why they're not moving.
it breaks your heart if you're in this
Because
business.
there's a real
Absolutely.
bottleneck there.
And to get people to understand that,
great.
Problem for an emergency vehicle if it's trying to get to Lakewood to try to
Right.
get someplace, to get
Exactly.
to
From the
us.
hospital.
you bet.
Either they have to go I-10 or they have to go all the way around.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. And that's exactly what's driving this change and trying to use this asset in just a totally different way than we originally envisioned, quite frankly. And we're excited to be a part of this, the change that's coming.
Could you go ahead and put the site plan back up?
Yes, you do it.
Councilman Johnson was asking a question. I want to get his question in here too, if you don't mind coming up where they can hear you.
Can we get a number percentage-wise on how much reduction we would see in 18-wheeler traffic and rail traffic?
The 18-wheeler traffic's easy.
Okay.
We're reducing the buildings by 2/3 on that, of phase 2.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, you're right. He asked the question about reducing truck traffic. That's the easy one because the bottom 2 buildings on this plan would not be built. So I'm saying 1/3, it might be some crazy fraction, but let's say we're reducing it by 2/3 because those buildings are not coming.
So 2/3 of the truck.
That the park would have normally experienced.
Okay, I have this question, very probably naive and unaware of the details, but is being able to publish, post, share some kind of traffic schedule just out of the realm of possibility?
That would be.
So that we can,
That would be, if you're talking about train traffic, that would be.
Yes.
That is for the Union Pacific Railroad. I would love to tell you I could control them. They are just like trying to control center point when your lights get dim at home.
Okay.
They're difficult at best to work with, and so they have actually thrown their weight behind this and saw this as an opportunity because they know they have an issue. It's, you know it, you know it better than anyone. You live here, and they have thrown their weight behind this opportunity to come up with this parking lot concept, if you will. But Councilman Johnson had asked if we could put a number on the number of cars that would be reduced, a percentage. I cannot do that today. I could think about it and talk some more with the railroads. I don't know if they'll share that. A lot of that's confidential information. But if you think about this yard parking here, we've got a 1,500 to 1,800 car parking lot, and it turns over every 30 days at worst case. So you can see how many cars fewer, I could give you that number, are not just rolling into the complex to be stuffed somewhere. They're stopping here and then they're being metered in. So we can work that way on a daily basis on how many cars are being stored here and are before they go into the complex, if that would help you.
Okay. So that would be 1,800 rail cars that wouldn't be traveling along the same route 2 to 3 times in a day.
That's correct.
May I ask this question? Let's say from Decker back down to, no, let's go from, Spur 330 feeder back down to Cedar Bayou Lynchburg. About how many cars would be parked along that line if they were there?
You got me flat-footed.
That would give them a point of reference as to what
Yes.
what that number would look like.
I'll get it if you can let me.
Okay, that'll.
It'll take Wait just a minute, y'all go on with your questions.
Yeah.
I'll get that number for you.
Okay,
You have any other questions?
well, I do, but if you all have anything else you want to discuss, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to talk about some of those things.
Any other questions that we can answer while we're looking up that specific question from Councilmember Johnson?
You mentioned earlier, I'm sorry, this is Dave Plouk. You had mentioned earlier that does it have to be rezoned heavy industrial to put a rail yard in?
I'll let her the quick answer to that is no, because we're currently approved for a rail yard in the facility. But the city has asked us to go from light industrial to heavy industrial when we eliminate those two warehouse buildings and add additional rail.
You might mention the reasons to control hazmat, that we're not gonna have BIH and TH.
How much of the area that's gonna be zone heavy industrial then will be taken up by the rail yard? And I guess where I'm going with this is, are they gonna be able to squeeze in any other sort of facility there or whatever? I guess that's where I'm going with this, just to
After it's rezoned.
clear. Yeah.
And can we
This
see
is
the
Mark
map
Scholander
again,
with
please?
Scholander Resources and Development, helping on the rail side, commercial side. So the city has asked that we replace the light industrial with heavy industrial because of all the rail, but mostly because their concerns were that there'll be some hazmat commodities coming in and out of the park. Today, there will not be any inhalation type cars. The skull and crossbones, we're not gonna allow that in any part of the park. It's gonna be a very clean facility, and it's nothing different than what UP today has in their Cody yard, just adjacent to it. So to answer that question, that's why they really wanted to push us to go to that heavier industrial, just to put the protections in place against those kinds of things, which we've already intended to do anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And one more comment, as a part of our special use permit that goes along with this, we specifically excluded the ability to have anything like smokestacks or a long list of hazardous chemicals. So if the thought was that we'd make it part rail yard and then part of it there would be some sort of industrial complex snuck in, that's specifically excluded. This is to allow us to have the rail yard capabilities, and it limits a lot of those other bad things I know you're worried about.
All right, what about storage tanks?
So you will need a special use permit, that is part of the process?
Yes, sir.
And that draft is out there, that's what's gonna be voted on Thursday night? Or one of the things?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about storage tanks?
As a developer, is this something you plan on just
Storage tanks
building
and
and then selling? And what are the chances that Union Pacific will take this over?
This is George Ponticus, and we intend to operate this park in a JV with the largest short line hauler in the country. So that is our intention. As Nick said, we're deleting 2 of the buildings and replacing them with primarily empty cars, and then when they come back, some of them could be full, but I think UP's planning on lining up those cars out in front of our park and then taking them out from there. So everybody that we've dealt with has said that the end result will be less traffic for Baytown. You know, we're here to answer your questions, but one other thing I wanted to say is they told us that we didn't really have to have new zoning to do this, but it was the way they would prefer for us to go. And so we agreed to do that. I mean, we did have no limit on the number of rail, the quantity of rail that we could put out there. They said out of an abundance of caution, we'd like you to go ahead and rezone this, and we agreed to do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The only other question I had, and please, if anyone else, the orientation, I don't know if you can put that drawing back up, but it almost looks like the way it's oriented, that as you're building and parking, that the flow is away from Cedar Lynchburg. Is that what I saw accurately, or? I don't know if I'm making sense there.
The flow is from I-10 south and
Right.
then back around and then north up the Baytown line.
You know, the flow hasn't changed in terms of the UP Class 1 direction.
Can we
Right.
see the map? Can we see the map?
Right, okay, that's good.
No, and I understand that the UP side obviously can't change and isn't going to, but with the way that's oriented, I guess, I like the way it is. That's where I'm going with it, is I like the way that it's oriented that
those
way.
are all dead-end tracks, if you will, the parking lot track
Yep.
piece of that, it goes nowhere beyond the top of the page. The orientation is just facing east and west in this map versus north and south, so that's why it looks a little different. But the UP at the bottom of the page, you can see the Cody Yard in black down at the bottom.
Right.
It's still flowing from I-10 to your left, if you will.
Right.
So it looks more like that.
Yeah.
One more, right there.
There you go. No,
No.
There we go. Okay.
right there.
We can see
That's
that
how it
better.
is.
There you go. Zoom in a little bit.
So that helps get you reoriented on where we're at. The flow doesn't change, so it's still the same as it is today
Right.
on the main line.
I have a question. So the trains come in from the north and sit in the lot until they're needed. Then how do they get out of the lot? Do they have to go back north again, intersect a locomotive and then go south? I don't see how they come out of the lot.
Well, that's a good question. This has been unusual in the support we've received from Union Pacific, and they actually allowed us to connect right about, actually ironically, where that box is that just popped up. I hope you can see it. This is a picture, right about, if you can see the crosshairs, right where the yellow hits Interstate 10 right there. There you go. The UP actually allowed us to connect directly to their yard so that we could receive faster service. They could pull cars from us without coming back out across a public thoroughfare. They actually go under I-10, they pull back north, and then they're put back into Cody Yard that is there today that you see every time you drive down Wade Road. So they've worked with us in that regard. They're gonna work this into the standard flow of their traffic so that they can provide the most efficient service, get these cars into our yard as quickly as they can, and then we'll work with the cars and sort them and get them organized the way that the customer needs so that when the UP picks them up, they're ready to go straight to the producer. And the UP then does not have to sit in Cody Yard and continue to switch and try to get the cars organized to go into go into the complex. We're going to do a lot of that for them, and that's going to be done on our site. And then they'll pull them under I-10, staying away from the public roadways to shove them back in and take them into the complex.
Okay, another question then, in my ignorance, I don't know anything beyond I-10. I've never gone on Wade Road north of I-10. Is that where the Cody Yard is?
Cody Yard is just south of I-10, right? If he could box it in their yard, that black.
Is it that yellow box?
There
Long
you go.
skinny yellow box?
There you go, right there. That's there today. Yes, ma'am. And don't call it an ignorant question. If you could answer all these, I'd be out of a job. So I appreciate it. But
Okay, so
that's Cody
the
Yard.
train, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So the train leaves your yard, comes in from the north, sits there, goes back out north, somehow intersects with the Union Pacific business up close to I-10,
Doesn't go back out north.
and hasn't crossed any public thoroughfares, and then goes south, and then will cross Cedar Bayou Lynchburg like it's doing now.
Once it goes
long
south,
way.
it'll return to the traditional flow. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Brandon, won't
All right.
the trains be shorter?
Yes, that's the other thing too, that is I don't want to be lost on everyone. Today, when a empty car, because the UP is fully, their network is full, nationwide, every railroad is full, right now across the country because the economy's coming back. But, the UP's full, so they have no means to store cars for people and provide this parking lot, that we're doing. This has to be done by personal, private investment. And so today, they're full, and so that means when any car, when they get a train, they come out of downtown Houston and they're heading toward the complex, it doesn't matter if that train's 50 cars or 150 cars, it's got to come to Baytown. It's got to be shoved in the gate of these producers in order to get it off the network. This allows them to park it and then only take what they need. All indications are that train lengths coming out of this park should be shorter. They're more organized. They're already blocked up by customers, and they're ready to proceed south across. I just went totally blank. I'm sorry.
Cedarville?
Yes. They're ready to head south and head into the complex. Shorter, more organized, ready to go because there's less congestion south of this yard once our facilities comes online.
Shorter would be good.
There you go.
Yeah, and fewer empty cars, obviously, yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is you think, man, when you really get to know this, you think I may see this same car again come back around this network before it finally leaves and goes and makes money for the producers and gets out of here. When you start seeing the fact that you may be seeing these cars 2 and 3 times today, and we're trying to eliminate that and provide a means so you only see that car once before it's loaded, that needs to not be lost on the fact that we may have shorter trains and the goal being shorter trains and fewer of them.
I can see that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Because we get blocked in Lakewood because not only do they block Cedarville Lynchburg, they block the Spur 330 feeder
Right.
road, they block Baker Road.
Yes, and I would love to tell you we would be able to go out and make a move. That is Union Pacific, and I don't want to sound like we're just throwing them under the bus and not going to deal with it. We have worked with them. They're aware of those problems, which is why they are actively promoting and frankly waiting to see if we're going to be able to get this done because they just see the opportunity, as do the producers. Obviously, the community sees it as a way to provide a way to decongest this community.
I have a question for Charles.
Yes, ma'am. Who's this?
This is Joy
Yes,
Huntington.
yes, ma'am. How are you? I missed you all at National Night Out this year.
Oh, we had one on my driveway. We missed you.
I didn't get the invitation. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't expect anybody to show up. People on Caldwell.
Okay.
Now Lakewood had theirs at Travis Park.
Yes,
You were not
ma'am.
invited.
I intended.
And on Post Oak Drive.
Yes,
too.
ma'am. I intended Miss Foley's, and I intended the one
Yes.
at Travis Park.
Oh, okay. Well, gee whiz, I missed your presence then. Okay, I may have forgotten my question now. No, my question is, doesn't the city of Baytown have some sway with Union Pacific in order for us to be able to get some sort of schedule so we could know that, by golly, do not go that way at 9:30 in the morning or whatever X time it would be? Do they have any schedule or do they just do this on whim? Hi, Brandon.
Hey, Charles.
I heard him say
Go
national
ahead.
security.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Can you see me?
There you are.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear
Yes.
you. Go ahead. I was gonna ask to defer to you on that.
Well, so I will tell you the short answer for most things. When you mention Union Pacific, the answer is usually no.
Right. Right.
So, and I'm sure all the guys there at council chambers would tell you the same. We've met with our Union Pacific representatives here in the local area. It is extremely frustrating. They are not flexible in any way, but my understanding, at least the schedules, I would say we probably in Lakewood, we know most of the schedules. I know me personally, when we were going to church, it seems like Sunday at 11 o'clock, there's always a train crossing at Decker, and it usually lasts a long period of time. But when it comes to the schedule itself, that I would assume, for the most part, that their schedule is always at the mercy of the producers and so on. But what I'm hoping for is that I think you've seen the presentation as far as the efficiencies that could take place with less movement and back and forth there at the Cody Yard, and obviously the looping of multiple cars around our city multiple times. I mean, to me, that's highly inefficient to burn a lot of fuel just moving these cars around over and over. But what I'm hoping for, the schedule may not change. It's always, I don't think it's not like a passenger schedule where somebody's going to be there at, every top of the hour. But the idea is that shorter trains, I would hope that, the idea is to get these trains shorter and faster through where they need to be. And so, I can certainly seek some type of general schedule, but it's always changing because the market's always changing, right? So oil prices, oil movements, as that changes, then obviously the need changes. But I think what you've seen, at least so far, and this has been with my discussions with this developer, is that we would see a reduction in the amount of movements, and certainly a reduction, which should relate into a reduction in the amount of wait times. And for Lakewood residents, we've dealt with this for many, many, many years. And y'all have asked us to work with Union Pacific and other folks to try to solve this problem. And I don't want to say this will solve our entire problem, but this will help mitigate it some. In addition to that, what we finally did get approval from from Union Pacific and TxDOT is, I call it a active crossing indicator. Mm-hmm. They approved 2 of those. I think they were, at the time, the locations would be a Baker Road install and a Decker frontage install. So you would have that option to get on to 330, like myself, to go to church or wherever. I did present an option. I'm not going to hold Ponticus, whoever, to it, but I did present, would they entertain the possibility of funding an indicator for Cedar Bayou Lynchburg, so that anybody who's trying to take, like for me, San Jacinto Boulevard, and I think the Foley's inclusive of that. If you're trying to go down Cedar Bayou Lynchburg to get to Kroger or HEB and you want to take San Jacinto Boulevard, but you get frustrated like myself because you drive all the way down and you see a train. So having an indicator there at Thompson and Cedar Bayou Lynchburg will at least give us that option sooner rather than later to go and take an alternate route. And so as I get more information, I will forward it to the Ponticus group. And, if that's something they're willing to entertain, I think that would certainly benefit certainly Lakewood residents. There's no doubt.
Yes, thanks, Brandon. That would be perfect.
I'm working on it.
That would help.
Now,
but yes, I think train schedule, my understanding, there's probably not something that's ever set in stone. That it's going to be a static schedule. It's based off of market, but I'm sure the train folks here could probably tell you more than I can by far.
And just to let everyone know, the city has been trying to work with UP for a while now. This is not something that's just coming up because of this development. I've actually had some conversation with the mayor, with city manager Rick, and even Nick, and sent pictures in of some concerns that I've received from citizens. And I can tell you for at least 2, maybe 3 years, they have been contacting, having meetings with Union Pacific, voicing the concerns that everyone has shared here today.
We know you have, Charles. Thank you.
Now, I got a number for the amount of cars that if they were lined up from Wallaceville Road to Decker Drive, that would be 259 cars. If we round it up to 260, so you're literally looking at about probably about 6 times the amount. That amount would be stored in that rail yard from Wallaceville to Decker Drive. They could pull that many cars into that yard.
This is Brandon Musser again. Did that compute? That's a lot of cars when you think about it that sit between Wallaceville and Decker And the fact that we can handle 6 times that and bring them on into the yard and keep them moving is exciting. One thing that came up, I don't want to let this go, about train schedules. That is in fact one reason the UP is not allowed to produce that, surprisingly, is Homeland Security.
National security.
Yep, you don't want things flowing through there. National security, Homeland Security involved in train movements. They monitor them. They're not allowed to broadcast them and let them know, because we want the products that are traveling to safely move and get on into the plant and get in there quickly. The other thing is the UP is well aware of this. I've worked with them for, like I said, 30 years. I don't work for them, so don't shoot the messenger. I work with them as best I can. We work with private industry like this to develop their interest, but they are aware of the problem. They're making a sizable capital investment on the Baytown subdivision, and I would let them talk to your mayor and others about that and share that. But I've watched them make a tremendous commitment to expand their infrastructure in an effort to relieve the congestion, which also goes to the fact of why they threw their weight so quickly and heavily behind this asset, because they see it as an opportunity to get so many cars safely, off their network. There was one other thing I was going to share, and I just went blank on it. The schedule. You have to help me out on that. I talked about it a little bit.
The fact that the schedule, everybody's concerned about the schedule and how secretive it is because of national security and those kinds of things, but also the schedule here affects the schedule across the entire United States and vice versa. So if you have a hiccup here based on their schedule moving products across America, it will back up the flow of cars for states and states and states. Just a domino effect. So just keep that in mind, and that's why it's difficult to ask them to change anything, because that's changing the whole system across America on schedules.
Well, that has helped me tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess one thing I'd like to echo, this is Dave Plauk again. What the mayor brought up about those indicators, getting them put on Baker and Decker and not Cedar Bayou before you actually turn onto the road to know there's a train there, that would help tremendously.
Yeah, it would. Sure.
It would, definitely.
Those are new products that the UP has begun to implement in cities. You've also seen things like quiet zones be implemented in certain cities that are willing to take on some of the risk at crossings. So the UP has developed, as best they can for as big as they are, a very robust public affairs approach to try to make things better. They know the congestion's there. And so, this is exciting that he had good success in talking with them, that they've approved two of them. And so hopefully we can keep pushing on them and get another one approved for the crossing that you were just talking about. But they're aware of it, they're trying, and just can't say enough about why they're just excited about this.
And Mayor, as you continue to get information on those signals as it relates to the design and cost, we definitely would like to learn more about that and discuss that with you in more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. I did get the email later this afternoon when I was at City Hall, but I forwarded it to city staff, and so we'll get you some details on it. But I think you can see that's the biggest frustration we have here in the local area is going and sometimes getting trapped and having to wait on a 45-minute or more crossing, and a lot of times. I think what was also expressed is there's no movement. So, right, you get even more frustrated, right? When you see the back and forth, something's happening. And I think you're exactly right. I think even Exxon, when I spoke with them earlier in the year, because we try to make sure that they have everything as efficient as possible within their fence line. And a lot of times the reason why it's not moving is because they're having, like you said, a lot of this is just backed up. The capacity, they're at capacity. And so many things are happening. And so even I've learned a lot on this presentation, even more than my discussions with the folks last week, is that, a more efficient process is certainly beneficial to not just the citizens here in Lakewood, but this is, we have all these crossings, the same folks on the other side of town. I guess you would say our east side of town, they experience these same type wait times, right? And so this is certainly a benefit, I think, to the entire community in Baytown. So I'll get you the details on that indicator. It is frustrating, but if it does lower the frustration level somewhat, then I think it's certainly going to be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think there's 50 of them.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions, so I'm going to leave. Does anybody else have anything that I should stay for?
No,
Well, hey, Joy, was that you, right? Or
Yes, it is.
Mary?
Yes,
Well,
George.
okay, I'm trying to look. I think I see Joy, and obviously I see Deacon Dan and Lynn and Dave. I think Miss Fullock and Mary Bagwell.
yes.
So that's who I see from our neighbors here, and I just want to tell you, and I'm sure Councilman Johnson would share the same. You know, we certainly always have a lot of interest of anything that's happening that we think could negatively impact, obviously the folks here in Lakewood, but any from my perspective, anywhere in Baytown. And so I'm glad y'all took the time. One, I want to thank Councilman Johnson and the Monticas folks for, I know it was last minute, but this was just last week when this came about, was to go and say, let's try to, before the council meeting, at least answer your questions. All of us have the same concerns. I expressed the same concerns in my meeting with them last week. And so I do want to appreciate what my neighbors here have done to ask very good questions. And certainly from the Ponticas group and our city staff and Councilman Johnson, all being able to answer this. I will tell you, I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that this will actually benefit the city. Most of the time it's the one thing I try not to do is knee jerk. But I always have to look at every project and the merit of each individual project and pros and cons. And as I expressed to other citizens earlier this afternoon, is I see this as a benefit, hopefully, because we've been asked what can we do about these trains? And I think even more than the indicator lights, having a better efficiency. So I didn't know that we're seeing the same empty rail cars maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that was news to me too, Brandon. Yeah.
So I knew there was a loop, but no pun intended, that threw me for a loop. I knew that some of that was taking place, but so now, like I expressed to y'all, to the Foleys, is that the same amount of traffic, I think you heard from the rail folks, the same amount of traffic is taking place. I didn't know that we were seeing the same rail cars.
Same.
And so if we can get a reduction in any way, a few percentage points, and certainly we hope that we can get a 30% reduction, I think that's going to be helpful. And I hope it all comes to fruition as presented. So I do thank y'all for attending. And so, we'll move on and we'll see where it goes from here.
Okay.
Brandon, I do have one more question I thought of while you were talking. This is Joy again. Is Baytown making any money off of this?
I can answer that question. The answer is yes. Last year,
Okay.
I think our taxes will be in the mid to low 7 figures on an annual basis.
Oh my God.
And
Okay. Well, that's good.
okay, and
Okay.
it's a good project. We're good neighbors, and we very, very much appreciate you taking the time to listen to us today. Thank you very much. I hope we helped you answering some questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Charles.
Thanks, Charles.
Thanks all around.
Thanks,
Okay,
Brandon.
thank you very much.
Absolutely. Y'all take care.
Okay, good night.